seated. I didn't know that verse was on there, Psalm 34. I'm going to be using Psalm chapter 34 toward the end of the message here. That was verse 17. Mine is verse 7. Again, not a coincidence. I don't know how many chapters there are in the Bible. I've never looked that up or sought to be informed of that, but how that verse would be on there, and I'm going to use Psalm 34 as well. But I like that song because it says, where sin runs deep, His grace is more. You don't understand. When you've been forgiven for much, then you understand what that grace is. First, you have to realize that you were separated from God. And then grace means the world to you. Here we are, we're in the fall season, we're coming out of fall, and we like to maybe take a trip, or we like to go see the fall colors. They make apps on phones. What's that called? It's called I've got it on my phone. It's called a Peep app or something like that, where you can look around the country, around the United States, and if people report back in, you can find out what the colors in the area are doing. Are they still green? Are they beginning to change? Are they moderate? Are they peaking? Are they past peak time? You know, and it kind of starts around a mountainous area, maybe the Smokies or the New England area, and you can kind of see this change come through the United States and make it onto our way as the temperature and the daylight begins to there be less hours of sunlight in our region, and the leaves they change. They move from one color to another, or maybe they just go to brown and they just fall off. But you look at a tree, and what do you see? You see color. You see it when it blooms in the spring. It comes. We have this Japanese maple tree out kind of in our right in the front of the house there in the flower bed area. And that thing will change 3-4 different colors. It's beautiful to watch it throughout the year, especially in the spring, how it will change from one color to another. You look at some other trees and you see their leaf shape. They have big leaves, they have small leaves, they have color as well. Maybe they have berries on them, maybe they have a fruit upon them. You see, when you look at a tree, you may see this spider web of branches that are just growing all throughout that tree. But what you don't see when you look at a tree is the support system. You do not see the root system of a tree when you look at it. There's more to that tree than what you see. And what you see is possible because of the support system, because of what is unseen about the tree. That's true about us. So much of what we are is because of what is unseen in our life. Now, do you know that in the unseen world right now, there are unseen things around you at this very moment? You could walk out of this building right now, and if only you could see with the spiritual eyes, you would see a great world, possibly even a great battle that is going on right now in the spiritual world. And you say, well, I don't believe that. Well, I do. I do. I firmly believe there is a battle going on right now that is absent from the eyes of us on earth. And we're going to see this right here. We're going to see this in this story, 2 Kings chapter 6. There are things taking place around us that we don't see, that if we had spiritual eyes, that we may be able to see what others don't see. 2 Kings chapter 6 is a very familiar story. It's about Elisha, and you're familiar with at least verse 16, if nothing else, in this chapter. Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So you say, yeah, yay, rah, hoorah, let's go, let's shout, let's charge, because this is a word from God and this is encouragement. So you're familiar with that. Now here's the story of Elisha and his servant. It's a story of what we don't see. It's a story. This whole story, this whole narrative, this whole everything that goes on right here is about seeing. You read through this text and you think about seeing as we read this. So this whole story is about what is unseen. It's a story about what we don't see, but yet how what we do not see still impacts us in our daily life. So verse 8. Now the king of Aram was warring against Israel, and he counseled with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. Aram, today's Syria. This is 800 years BC, before Christ, and today Syria is still causing trouble in the Middle East, in the world too. Thing is, they don't just ride chariots and donkeys and horses and have spears as they did back in those days. Today, they just shoot rockets over the border to Israel. So this is the same area. This is the same group, still causing trouble. So the king lays out this battle plan in verse 8. He says, I've got this plan. We're going to do this. The king of Aram, in such and such a place shall be my camp. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to make camp. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the other. Verse 9, the man of God sent word to the king of Israel. Now Elisha's the man of God. He's going to send word to the king of Israel. It is what it says. Beware that you do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there. God's the one telling Elisha, this is what's going to happen. The king of Aram, he's going to come by this place. He's going to want to set up camp here, but I'm preparing you. You go tell the king so that he can be prepared, so that he can warn the people, so that they can be equipped when they travel by this place. Verse 10. The king of Israel sent to the place about which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned him, so that he guarded himself there more than once or twice. So more than once or twice, multiple times, God comes to Elisha and says, hey, the Aram king is setting up a camp here. He's looking to come into Israel over here. He's looking to come across the border over here in this area. They're going to come in. They're going to try to conquer Israel. So God tells Elisha more than once or twice, multiple times, this is going to happen. You be prepared. You tell the king. You warn the king. They are about to conquer. They are coming in to conquer you. But every time the Aram king tried to cross over the border into Israel, what happened? Israel ambushed them. And he wonders, this king wonders, what's going on here? How come we get ambushed every time we try to sneak across the line? Verse 11. Now the heart of the king of Aram was enraged over this thing. And he called his servants and said to them, will you tell me which of us is for the king of Israel? Now this sounds like a great movie. This sounds like a good movie plot here. We got spies involved. We got a battle plan. The Aram king says, he gets his generals together. He calls them into a room. Man, you can just see them with their little action figures, their little G.I. Joe guys, and they got all these guys set up right here. Here's the map laid out. Here's the boundary. Here's the border. Here's where we're going to cross. You guys are going to move across this brook over here, or this stream over here. You guys are going to flood in through this area. And what happens? He thinks there's a spy. He thinks there's a spy in his camp. Who is spying on us and telling Israel what is going on? Well, this is a good Hollywood movie right here. There's a lot of action taking place. We've got a spy in the midst, but verse 12. One of his servants said, no, my lord, O king, but Elisha. There's no spy here. There's not a spy amongst us, king, O Lord, but it's Elisha the prophet who is in Israel. He tells the king of Israel the words that you speak even in your bedroom. The king. He said, there's no spy here, O king. There's a man of God on the other side. And God comes to him and tells him what you say even to your wife in your bedroom late at night. God knows what's said behind closed doors. Two things we can see here almost immediately. If we prayed more, we would probably hear more from God. Amen. There you go. God knows everything, your actions, your speak, your thoughts, your words. Two things. Verse 13. So he said, go and see where he is, that I may send and take him. And it was told him, saying, behold, he's in Dothan. Now, you got to love this. Who has been telling Elisha everything? God has. God's been telling Elisha not just part things, not just half things, not just every now and then, once a month he'll come to him. He's been telling Elisha everything that king is about to do. But yet the government, the king is the government, he comes in with this bright idea. He kind of whispers in his ear, psst, hey, tell me where Elisha is and we'll go get him. The king obviously didn't understand or didn't hear what the servant had just told him. God tells Elisha everything, period, king. But yet the government comes up with this idea, hey, we can outsmart God here. There's no logic. It's the logic of the world right now. So knowing this, knowing that God has been telling Elisha everything, don't we think that God would inform Elisha about what is to take place? Yes, we would think that. The king should think that, but yet in his own worldly, secular logic, he thinks, I will step around God and I'll get this man of God and I'll cut his tongue out, I'll cut his head off, I'll take him captive for myself, I'll use him as my own pawn, as my own tool, do whatever I want to with him. Got another thing coming, verse 14 and 15. He sent horses and chariots and a great army there. And they came by night and surrounded the city. So he does this. Great army, horses, chariots, many men to take this one person prisoner. Now when the attendant of the man of God, Elisha's servant now, Elisha's buddy, had risen early and gone out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was circling the city. And his servant said to him, alas, my master, what shall we do? So the king sends an army in the cover of darkness, no lights, no planes above, no spotlights, no searchlights, no way. Maybe they had some torches or something like that going on, but under the cover of darkness, for the most part, they make their way to the city of Dothan, and they surround the city with all their chariots, all their army, all their men. Elisha's servant, what does he do? Like a good servant, he wakes up that fine morning, probably a morning like this right here, a crisp morning. He wants to go outside of his tent, outside of his hut. He gets out there, he stretches, he yawns. He says, I'm going to go over here to the well. I'm going to draw some water because my master Elisha, he likes to have a good pot of Starbucks coffee. Starbucks is popular right now, so he wants to have a good Starbucks fresh ground pot of coffee, and I'm going to get that ready for him with a little Christmas cup too, might I add. His servant had one of those. But so he's going to take that, he's going to get that ready for Elisha, and he's yawning, he's stretching, he's rubbing the sleep out of his eye. Goodness! He's speechless. The servant is speechless, and what does he do? He goes running back into the little hut, the little tent, and he says, oh my goodness, master, what are we going to do? We have no record that the servant even tells Elisha what is outside the door, do we? We don't have any record of that. Elisha knows what's going on. The servant is in shock. It takes his breath away. What shall we do? We're dead men. Elisha, all the servant is focused on is what? What he can see. And that's how you live your life too. You go from crisis to crisis. emergency to emergency, this thing to that thing, and we are constantly paralyzed because we are focused on what we see when we should be focused on a King of Kings and what we can't see. December the 15th, 1944, I believe it was 5 German Army tank divisions were rushing through France. They were rushing through France on their way to Belgium. They wanted to make it to a port city in Belgium to drive a wedge between the Allied forces. The German forces felt if they could make it to Belgium, if they could get to that port city, they could split up the Allied forces. They could be able to capture that city. Then they themselves could get the supplies that they needed for their army, for their men, for their munitions, for their equipment, and then they would take the battleships that were out there in that port and they would begin to shell everything that moved from those ships. And they thought that that was a sure way to victory, that they would destroy the Allied forces in Europe. However, on their way to Belgium, they come to a city called Bastogne. 3 German tank divisions surround that city because the 101st Airborne were held up in there. They come up to that city, Bastogne, and they surround it, and the 101st is in there, and the commander sends word to the 101st commander. He says, you need to surrender or you will die. So, the 101st commander, being a good commander like he is, he tells the German commander where he can go, and he says, we will not surrender to you. So for the next 24 hours, those 3 German tank divisions bombed that city. 101st survived that one day, that first day, but there was really no way they could survive a second day of bombing. But that following day, unknown to anyone, unknown to the Germans, unknown to the 101st, Patton's 3rd Army and a tank division came busting up in there and saved the 101st. That right there broke the back of the German army and led to the downfall of the Nazi Empire. All the 101st knew was that they were surrounded. They could not see past the Germans. Their response to the Germans, when the Germans said, we have you surrounded, the 101st response was, good, we can attack in any direction now. Good military men. We live our lives by all that we see that surrounds us, and we lose all hope and we lose despair in our lives because all we see is what we can see with our physical eyes, and we never look past to what the unseen, what God is doing, just like Elisha's servant. Some of you have already given up. You've already given up on school, you've already given up on a marriage, you've already given up on a job, on life maybe, on your parents, on just whatever it is, maybe a marriage, maybe the church. You've given up on it and you've checked out because all you see with your own eyes looks like there is no hope and it's just desperate time for you. Because all we do is focus on what we physically see when there is something unseen in the spiritual world that makes a difference and that changes things for us. Verse 16. Elisha. Again, I told you, Elisha, we don't see where the servant tells him what they're stacked up against. But Elisha says, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Do not fear. Stop your panic. Elisha is focused on who? On what? Elisha is focused on the King of Kings. What are you focused on? What are you afraid of? 17, then Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around them. All around Elisha. All around the servant. Now let me ask you, this is angels. You believe in angels today? Oh, good, good. That's a good thing, because the Bible talks about angels. Jesus talked about them. Jesus said they were out there. Hebrews talks about them. Paul said he saw one. Peter said he saw his. So yes, they are real. Elisha talks about it. The servant sees them. Look here at Psalm 34. I told you we'd get there. Psalm 34, verse 7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him and rescues them. Psalm 91, verse 11. In case you still weren't won over. For He will give His angels charge concerning who? You. To guard who? You. In all your ways. Angels are real. They're out there. That's a word for us today. When you fear God, when you seek after God, when you search after God, He is there to protect you. Just because you don't see it with your own eyes doesn't mean God's not at work. Doesn't mean they're not real. Doesn't mean He's not there. Doesn't mean He's not doing something, preparing a way for you to answer, to rescue you in your life today. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean He's not active right now. Verse 18, back in 2 Kings. When they came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, now this is the army. The army's coming down. Elisha prays to the Lord and said, strike this people with blindness, I pray. So he struck them with the blindness according to the word of Elisha. Now, blindness does not mean that they had some kind of scales on their eyes and they were completely, needed a stick or a seeing eye dog or something like that. Elisha was saying, God, I'm praying that you make them blind so that they see what is not there and that they don't see what is right in front of them. That's what the prayer was. That's what this blindness spoke of. Verse 20 through 23. I didn't read that first. Then Elisha said to them, this is not the way. So they come. They're coming. They're coming looking for Elisha and the servant, but they have this blindness about them, remember? So Elisha says to them in verse 19, this is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. And he brought them to Samaria. So what's Elisha going to do? They're blind. They can't see what's right in front of them. So Elisha, man, you just got to love this. Elisha's going to walk over there, take them by the hand, and say, hey, grab, just like little preschoolers. You know, you see preschoolers, they run around, you got to have a little rope tied between them or something like that. Everybody hold on to the rope now as we walk over here to the cafeteria. We go to the potty break and everything like that. That's what Elisha does with these guys. This great military, chariots, horses, fighting men. Elisha takes them and leads them by the pinky, basically. He says, now you grab a hold to this horse's tail right here. You grab a hold to this strap off the chariot. I'm going to take you to where this person is. And where does he take them? He takes them right up to the king of Israel. He takes them right in to the place that they really didn't want to go. So here we are. Here we are in verse 20 through 23. And this is good. When they had come into Samaria, Elisha said, O Lord, open their eyes. Open the eyes of these men that they may see. So the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw. And behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. Now who do you think's around these people now? The whole Israel army. They got them surrounded. Then the king of Israel, when he saw them, said to Elisha, my father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them? Elisha answers, he said, you shall not kill them. Would you kill those you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. So he prepared a great feast for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. And the marauding bands of Arameans did not come again into the land of Israel. Now these guys saw something in Elisha. This Aramean group, army group, they saw something in Elisha they had never seen before. Grace. grace. Elisha is a type of Christ right now. Your part in this story is the Aramean. And let me show you. These Arameans, what did they deserve? They deserve death. They deserve death, but Elisha shows what God is like. Elisha shows grace. You and I were in the place of the Arameans when Jesus Christ showed up on the scene. Yes, you were. You were an enemy of God. The Arameans were an enemy of God. We were in wickedness. They were in wickedness, but grace showed up. The devil was shouting out to Christ and the world, just let me kill them. And Jesus says, no. You cannot have them. They are mine. Jesus says not only that, but I want you to come over here. I have a banquet. I have a table. I'm going to set you at the prime spot. You have everything you're ever going to need right here. Jesus says, you eat this, and I'm sending you and setting you free. That's what you just sung. You sung about grace. Who Christ has set free is free indeed. You need to live a life. You need to live a life of remembering the grace that God poured out upon you, because the devil was standing over you before you came to Jesus Christ saying, let me just kill him. Let me kill her. And Christ said, no, I've already paid for their sins. Amen. Let me pray for you.